What's the most shocking thing you've ever walked in on? User, throwaway pants down 94 said. I walked in on my dad wearing my mom's clothes and my mom clapping for him. Dead serious. I was 17, came home early from a sleepover, and the house was too quiet. I went upstairs and found my dad in the bedroom mirror, wearing one of my mom's dresses, her heels, and even a full face of makeup, badly done, but he was clearly trying. My mom was on the bed watching him and literally said, "You're getting better with the eyeliner, babe." I just stood there frozen. My dad turned and yelled, "Close the door," like I was the one doing something wrong. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or apologize. They never brought it up again, and neither did I, but I cannot unsee that smoky eye disaster. User, accidental brutalist said. I walked in on my fiancé making out with my maid of honor at our wedding venue walkthrough. Yep, we were at the vineyard the day before our wedding, going over the setup with the planner. I couldn't find them for like 20 minutes, so I went to the back garden where the caterers were setting up. They were behind a hedge, full-on kissing, and she had her hand in his pants. I froze. He saw me first and literally said, "It's not what it looks like." I said, "Are you rehearsing the honeymoon too?" I canceled the wedding that night. She blocked me on everything. He texted me a month later saying he misses my energy. Bro, miss your own funeral. User, Cat Fadan Karma said. I walked in on my roommate eating my cat's food straight out of the can. Not even kidding. He was crouched on the kitchen floor with a fork and a can of fancy feast like it was beef stew. I said, "Dude, what the actual hell?" And he just shrugged and said, "It's high in protein." He was stone cold sober too. I moved out 2 weeks later and left him the cat. Figured they were closer anyway. User, Sister Secrets 13 said. I walked in on my older sister kissing our mom's boyfriend. He was 32. She was 19. They were in the garage, sitting on the washing machine, and I caught them mid-makeout session. I ran back inside and told my mom immediately. She didn't believe me. Called me jealous. 2 months later she walked in on them herself, and then she believed me. They both got kicked out. Haven't talked to either since. I hope they're both doing terribly. User, Not So Innocent 99 said. I walked in on my grandma, tattooing a penis on my uncle's back. That sentence is already cursed, I know. But it's true. My uncle lost a bet on a family vacation. We were in a cabin up north, and apparently the deal was that grandma would do the tattoo herself, because she used to do ink back in the day. I came downstairs to grab my charger, and there he was, shirtless, bent over the table with grandma tracing this cartoonish, vein monstrosity on his shoulder blade, while smoking a cigarette like she was Michelangelo. I just backed out of the room like I walked in on a crime scene. We don't talk about it, but it's still there. You can kind of see it through his shirt at barbecues. User, Sleep with an Eopin once said. I walked in on my husband cuddling my best friend's newborn like it was his kid. At first I thought it was just a sweet moment. Then I noticed how awkward they both looked when I entered. My friend looked terrified. I joked, "You two look like a little family," and no one laughed. A week later I found texts on his phone. Turns out they'd been sleeping together for months. And yes, the baby was his. He swore it just happened once, and it meant nothing. My best friend said she was scared to tell me. I left him. She's raising the baby alone now. We haven't spoken since. But every time I see a baby in a stroller, I feel that punch in the gut all over again. User, Too Many Teeth for Me said. I walked in on my ex pulling his own tooth out in my bathroom with pliers. I heard clanking and groaning from the hallway and thought he was having some kind of medical emergency. Nope, just him, shirtless, gripping the sink and yanking one of his molars out like a medieval dentist. When I screamed, he turned around with a bloody smile and said, "It was loose." We broke up a month later. Not just because of that, but honestly, that didn't help. User, MilkMambaby911 said. I walked in on my dad meeting his other family at a Chuck E. Cheese. I was 15 and there for a friend's little brother's party. I saw my dad across the arcade, holding hands with a woman I'd never seen and picking up a toddler. I thought, weird, that kid looks like me. Then he kissed the woman. I hid behind a plastic giraffe statue and watched them for 20 minutes. I didn't say anything for 3 years. When I finally confronted him, he admitted everything. My mom had no clue. She divorced him the next week. He's still with the other family. I haven't spoken to him in 5 years. User, Whipped Cream Killer said. I walked in on my coworker taking a nap naked in the walk-in freezer. I worked at a small bakery and went into the freezer to grab some pie crusts. There she was, lying on a crate of frozen peas, completely nude except for her socks, snoring like a freight train. I was like, "Are you okay?" And she just sat up, deadpan, and said, "I get hot when I'm stressed." I told the boss and she got written up, but somehow she still works there. Every time I eat frozen peas now, I feel a little sick. User, Therapist Needed Pulse said. I walked in on my girlfriend role-playing a breakup with a mannequin dressed like me. I'd come home early from work and found her in our living room, crying and screaming at this bald mannequin she'd dressed in one of my hoodies. She was like, "You don't listen. You never take me seriously," and threw a shoe at it. I waited until she was done before saying anything. She just looked at me, totally calm, and said, "It helps me process my feelings." We stayed together for another 6 months. Not my finest moment. User, Cheatersratcheck said, I walked in on my girlfriend having sex with my cousin on my birthday. I had planned this whole surprise dinner for her. Candles, wine, the works. Came home early to set everything up. As I opened the door, I heard moaning. Thought I was going insane. Walked to my bedroom, and there they were, on my bed, my cousin wearing the party hat I left on the table. She screamed. He just said, "Bro, I thought you were working late." I didn't say a word. I grabbed the wine, left the apartment, and drank it in my car while booking a hotel room. Haven't spoken to either of them since. Family reunions are real awkward now. User, Serial Psycho 43 said, I walked in on my roommate pouring milk back into the jug from his cereal bowl. He said, "I don't like to waste it." I said, "You already dipped your spoon in it." He didn't care. Said it was still clean. I watched him do it 3 separate times before I finally said something. He looked confused, like I was the freak. I started labeling my milk after that. Then I started locking my bedroom door. Then I just moved out. I think about it every time I see Frosted Flakes. User, my mom was the other woman said, I walked in on my mom kissing a man who wasn't my dad. Turned out he was my boyfriend's dad. I didn't even put it together at first. I just thought, wow, mom is really comfortable with this random guy. When I confronted her later, she panicked and admitted they'd been seeing each other in secret for over a year. I told my boyfriend he lost his mind. Our families basically exploded. Now our parents are together, and me and my ex avoid each other like the plague. It's giving reverse step siblings, and I hate it here. User, Brokey and Haunted said, I walked in on my boss crying in the office bathroom while listening to Nickelback on full blast. Like, sobbing. Shirt unbuttoned, tie around his head, sitting on the floor like he just got dumped by life. I was there to clean the mirror because the office hired me as a janitor part-time. He looked up and said, "They don't appreciate me." I nodded, backed out, and never mentioned it again. He gave me a $100 bonus a week later. No idea if it was pity or blackmail prevention. User, Sugar Crash Barbie said, I walked in on my stepmom sniffing my dirty laundry and muttering my name. Yeah, you read that right. I had just come back from college, went to grab my suitcase from the laundry room, and there she was, crouched over a pile of my clothes, holding up my tank top like it was a love letter, whispering, God, I missed her. She didn't see me. I backed away slowly and told my dad I was staying with a friend for the week. I never brought it up. Neither did she. But I washed everything twice before packing it again. User, Married to Me Mistake said, I walked in on my wife practicing her new last name. That wasn't mine. She was sitting at her desk, writing it over and over in cursive like a teenager. Mrs. Angela Thompson. My last name is Patterson. I asked her who Thompson was, and she stuttered and said it was just a random name from a book. Turns out it was her coworker. She'd been having an emotional, and probably physical, affair with him for months. I only found out because I checked her work email. The next day, I printed one of their love notes and taped it to the fridge. She moved out that weekend. User, Not a Funeral said, I walked in on my cousin taking selfies with our dead grandpa at the wake. He had his arm around the casket, doing duck lips and peace signs. At one point he said, "This one's for the gram," and I almost threw up. I asked what the hell he was doing, and he said, "It's content, bro." I told his mom. She grounded him. He's 19. But the worst part? One of the photos actually got a ton of likes. People thought it was dark but artistic. I don't talk to that side of the family anymore. User, Bagel Betrayal 88 said, I walked in on my boyfriend proposing to someone else. I had a key to his apartment and went over to surprise him with brunch. I walk in and there he is, on one knee in the living room, holding a ring out to a woman I'd never seen before. He looked at me like I was the homewrecker. Turns out he was living a double life. 2 girlfriends, 2 phones, 2 everything. I left the bagels on the floor and walked out. He texted me later asking if I wanted my necklace back. I told him to give it to fiancé number 2. User, Holly Hotuncle said, I walked in on my aunt and my uncle's twin brother, making out in the laundry room. It took me a second to realize it wasn't actually my uncle. I was like, why is Uncle Dan wearing a leather jacket? Then I heard her say, we can't keep doing this. That's when my brain just shut down. I told my mom, who told my grandma, who blew up the whole family group chat. The twins don't speak now. Aunt Janelle is somehow still married to the original twin. And yes, I avoid all holidays like the plague. User, Sinsan Shampoo said, I walked in on my church youth pastor snorting coke off a Bible. It was in the back room during a youth retreat weekend. I had gone in to grab extra towels. I opened the door, and there he was, Bible open, tiny spoon in hand, sniffing like his life depended on it. He looked up and just said, "Don't tell your parents." I told my parents. He was fired. And now I'm an atheist. Not just because of that, but yeah, it didn't help. User, Dump Truck Diaries said, I walked in on my ex-girlfriend taking pictures of her, but next to my grandma's urn. No joke. She was squatting in front of the fireplace where I keep my grandma's ashes, doing some full-on Instagram thirst trap poses. I was like, "Are you serious right now?" And she just goes, "The lighting in here is so good." I broke up with her on the spot. She asked if she could at least keep the photos. I told her if she posted one, I'd haunt her myself. User, Lita Balthiking said, I walked in on my dad and his best friend spooning in a tent, on a guys-only hiking trip. I wasn't supposed to be there. I drove up to surprise them because it was my dad's birthday. When I opened the tent, there they were, shirtless, asleep, wrapped around each other like it was a honeymoon suite. I just zipped the tent back up and pretended I never saw it. A year later, my mom filed for divorce. She never said why. I have suspicions. User, Pants Around Pizzas said, I walked in on my neighbor having sex on my kitchen table. Backstory, I had asked him to check on my cat while I was out of town. I came home a day early and found him and some random girl going at it on top of my unopened pizza delivery. He had the nerve to say, "Oh man, didn't think you'd be back yet." Like, bro, you're butt naked in my house eating my pizza and traumatizing my cat. I kicked him out and changed the locks. Still no idea how long he'd been using my place like a motel. User, Emotional Damage Apples said, I walked in on my fiancé, practicing a breakup speech in the mirror. He didn't know I was home. I heard him in the bathroom saying stuff like, "I just think we've grown apart, and it's not you, it's me." I stood outside the door for a full 5 minutes before opening it and saying, "Do you want to try that again to my face?" He froze. Tried to say it was for a work presentation. I left that night and never looked back. He did try to come crawling back a week later, but I told him I already rehearsed my speech, too. User, Birthday Blowup 23 said, I walked in on my mom and her boss doing whipped cream shots off each other at my birthday party. I was turning 21, so I rented out a big Airbnb and invited family and friends. Around 1 a.m., I noticed my mom was missing. I went into the kitchen and boom, she's on the counter, her boss is licking whipped cream off her chest, and there's a half-eaten cheesecake on the floor. She screamed. He fell off the stool. I just turned around and walked out the front door. My friends thought it was hilarious. I haven't eaten whipped cream since.